इसीलिए जो जो टोटल हमारी लागत है वो कहीं ना कहीं अपने आप में हमारी जो बचत है वो बढ़ जाती है।
We want the highest scientific rigor to accompany our work. So these are all the international organizations working with us. I already mentioned
सर
World
यहाँ पर
Health
साझा कर रहे हैं कि दुनिया भर से जो अलग अलग शोध की संस्थाएं हैं वो एपीसीएनएफ के साथ में काम कर रही हैं, अलग अलग तरह के शोध कर रही हैं, क्योंकि इस चीज को साइंस के माध्यम से प्रूव करना बहुत जरूरी है। और अलग अलग तरीके के लोग इसमें इस प्रक्रिया को करने में मदद कर रहे हैं।
hands with us is the Potsdam Institute of Climate Change. They want to see how our natural farming models can be calibrated for different scenarios of climate. Then CGIAR institutions, we're working with them. So these are the international research organizations. At the same time, we are working with all the ICR research institutions with regard to rice,
देश
maize,
में अपने जो
pulses.
आईसीआर इंस्टीट्यूट है उस पे भी काम कर रहे हैं,
So they will work
धान के ऊपर,
now
मक्की के ऊपर, कॉटन के ऊपर, दलहन के ऊपर।
natural farming and conventional farming.
एपीसीएनएफ की
But
जो सीख है वो कैसे हमारे देश में और जगह पे बढ़े उसको लेकर के भी प्रक्रिया चल रही है।
similarly, we're working with our state agriculture, horticulture universities of Andhra Pradesh to do the study for major crops in the state. Then we are trying to understand what is the reduction in water. So we have studies there. Then we have in-house studies by the RYSS science team. But finally, according to me, our farmers are the best scientists because every year they're experimenting, what needs to be done, how best they can improve their condition. They test whatever we say in a small piece of land. If they see benefit from that, they increase. So the best evidence, according to me, is more and more farmers joining this and more
सर
and
ये
more
बता रहे हैं कि अगर प्राकृतिक खेती
under natural farming.
का रिजल्ट देखना
So
है
this
तो
is
वो किसानों के खेत पे दिख सकता है, और वही सबसे ज्यादा
both
हमें मदद कर सकते हैं समझने में। तो
and
जितने ज्यादा किसान इसे जोड़ते हैं उतना ही हम इस चीज को प्रूव कर पाएंगे
are
कि
working
कैसे
together
प्रकृति के नियम को फॉलो करने से
transitioning this
मिट्टी का स्वास्थ्य,
the habitat.
पर्यावरण का स्वास्थ्य, इस
So
धरती का स्वास्थ्य और हमारा
these are
स्वास्थ्य
all
सब
the
कुछ
main
बेहतर हो सकता है।
publications of our publications, and we have given you a link. You are most welcome to go through these
ये अलग
and see
अलग तरीके के शोध हुए हैं
so
इस
these are
एपीसीएनएफ के आधार काम को लेकर के।
international importance.
अभी तक 14 पब्लिकेशंस हुए हैं।
More what we do in house. So I'll just pause for a minute to show you the impact of natural farming. First is the impact which comes from resilience to cyclones. So I'll show
सर
that
ये बता
first.
रहे हैं, एक वीडियो दिखाने वाले हैं
The
कि
difference
कैसे प्राकृतिक खेती
agriculture
का असर, जहां पर
and the natural farming
अगर तूफान आया है, एक प्राकृतिक खेती में लगाया हुआ खेत और एक
video
केमिकल रासायनिक खेती वाला, उसमें क्या फर्क है, उस वीडियो को सर वीडियो के माध्यम से वो दिखाना चाह रहे हैं कि क्या 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 फायदा है
and
प्राकृतिक
also
खेती का
that's the reason why I'm
आज
showing
के
this.
परिवेश में, जब जलवायु परिवर्तन इतना बढ़ रहा है
These are man-made calamities.
उस स्थिति में।
There are extreme weather events, but how we treat the land determines how
ये 2023 में
you know.
आंध्रा में एक साइक्लोन मिचांग आया था, उसकी एक वीडियो है ये कि
Can you hear the sound, Rohit?
Yes, yes, Vijay Kumar Garu. Yes, yes.
So this is a cyclone which hit us 3rd, 4th, 5th of December. We lost paddy in more than 4 lakh acres of land. This was paddy about to be harvested. There cannot be a bigger shock to farmers to lose the crop at the time of harvest.
पर आप देख पा रहे होंगे कि प्राकृतिक खेती क्या, खेत और एक ऐसा खेत जहां पर रसायन पड़ता है उसकी क्या स्थिति है। ये खेत है रासायनिक खेती वाला।
So you see how natural farming fields were resilient, whereas chemical agriculture fields completely lost out. So you saw the difference in the root system, how this root system is so firm, it doesn't fall. But we had a very interesting breakthrough thanks to the work of an Australian scientist who visited us shortly, some time ago, and he looked at it from the microscope. I just want to see if I have that or not here. One
Sir,
second.
also I just wanted to check in how much time would you be taking?
Yeah,
Because-
another 10 minutes.
Perfect, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I was hoping that I would show you the fills. Okay, I'll try to show his microscopy. Now, yeah. The other thing is to see the contrast between natural farming and chemical agriculture. And this is
प्राकृतिक खेती और रासायनिक खेती के बीच जो फर्क है उसको और गहरे से समझने के प्रक्रिया के बारे में सर साझा कर रहे हैं। और ये एक साइंटिस्ट हैं, एक शोधकर्ता हैं, जो ये फर्क क्या है एक प्राकृतिक खेती के माध्यम से उगाया पौधा और एक केमिकल खेती से उगाया गया पौधे में।
natural farming, and one was we took a sample from marigold from the chemical farming. With the chemical farming, what's clearly noticeable, really hard firmness of the soil. Try and get a sample out. I was using a rock trying to scratch the soil out because I couldn't get it with my hands. It is monocrop, not just a monocrop, it's just that the soil is left bare and it's overheating. And one from the natural farming. Marigold was absolutely beautiful. It had a large proportion of flowers. The plant diversity, we had a large proportion. There was no sign of insects, there was no sign of any disease. And guess what? When I went down to take a sample, I went like this and I just dug it, and my hand literally went in like that, and I come out with a big handful of soil.
वो बता रहे हैं कि कैसे जो प्राकृतिक खेती वाला खेत है वहां पर उन्होंने जब मिट्टी निकाली तो एकदम आराम से निकल के आ गई, और उसके जगह पे जब उन्होंने केमिकल खेत में देखा तो वो पत्थर से उनको मिट्टी निकालनी पड़ी क्योंकि मिट्टी इतनी कड़क थी।
When we went to the marigold natural farming, in the soil test, we found extremely high inactivity. When we took those samples, that in the chemical farming, there's like a little trumpet, a little tube, and the flower where the flowers, and they were aborting by a large amount. We also found grubs, and we went back into natural farming, and we didn't find one abortion of flowers being dropped. What we also found in chemical farming, no hyphae in those samples. We found hyphae in natural farming. What we've found under the microscopes is a clear evidence that natural farming, soil structure, biological structure, cell structure is far superior to our chemical farming.
So that is the concurrent evidence of what is happening in the soil. So now I'll just complete the remaining slides. I'm also conscious that we're running out of time. This you already saw. This is another thing, that how can we reclaim a desert? And this is in Anantapur.
सर बात कर रहे हैं कि ऐसी जगह जहां पर रेगिस्तान ऐसी परिस्थितियां हो रही हैं जहां रेत बढ़ रही है और अच्छी मिट्टी कम हो रही है, वैसी जगह को प्राकृतिक खेती के माध्यम से कैसे वापस लाया जा सकता है।
So a lot of people may say it takes plenty of time, but our experience shows with the right kind of practices, the change happens in the first season itself. Then this is about the water puzzle. And you see, out of 100 raindrops falling on the soils, only 2 drops are stored in the big dams.
अगर बारिश की 100 बूंदें गिरती हैं तो सिर्फ और सिर्फ 2 बूंदें एक डैम के अंदर पानी की तरह स्टोर हो पाती हैं या कहीं पर स्टोर हो पाती हैं।
12 drops are there in the
12 जो बूंदें हैं वो 12 बूंदें
drops in the river streams.
नदी के उसके अंदर जाती हैं,
There are
और जो बाकी 86 पर ड्रॉप्स है,
which
36 ड्रॉप्स जो हैं
the soil used by the plants and then they are transpired. Also
वो पौधे के अंदर जाते हैं, मिट्टी द्वारा इस्तेमाल होते हैं और उसके बाद में फिर पौधे से ऊपर निकल जाते हैं।
drops which are
और 50% ड्रॉप्स जो हैं वो कहीं ना कहीं हमारे वाष्प बन करके उड़ जाते हैं, भाप बन करके उड़ जाते हैं। प्राकृतिक खेती कैसी प्रक्रिया है जो भाप बढ़ने में, भाप के माध्यम से उड़ने वाला पानी भी है, उसको भी रोका जा सकता है और उसको भी खेती में इस्तेमाल किया जा सकता है।
So this is the other very important breakthrough in
प्राकृतिक खेती का एक बहुत मुख्य सिद्धांत है कि बाहर के पानी से पानी की उपयोगिता कम करके जो प्रकृति में, हवा में पानी उपलब्ध है, उसको कैसे इस्तेमाल किया जाए।
practical steps which happened thanks to the work of our project manager in Anantapur and also our team all over the state. So in tropical countries, I don't know how many of you are aware that water in the air is available up to 50,000 parts per million. That means there are 10 rivers of water in the air. And natural
बता रहे हैं कि हवा के अंदर
soil biology
10 नदियां मिल जाए इतना पानी हमारे हवा में उपलब्ध है।
plants to harness this water.
और प्राकृतिक खेती के माध्यम से ये पानी हम
I'll come back to
कैसे कर सकते हैं।
I finish my other slides. So this is Walter Yellen
कुछ
came in 2019.
खेतों की फोटोज हैं जहाँ पर प्राकृतिक खेती हो रही है।
The different scientific principles. He gave a lecture in Niti Aayog, and his conclusion, this was about after 4 days of brainstorming, he tried to explain to us what are the different sources of water. Even
जो
apparently
साइंटिस्ट है
there's no water
वो यहाँ पर बता रहे हैं कि अलग अलग पानी के स्रोत क्या है।
by Phil Lee also. So he called it biological water, soil film water, the fungal hyphae going deeper to get in water. But he feels that there are about more than 60%, 60 to 80% of this water is basically the leaves harnessing water from the air. We're still trying to
उनके हिसाब से 60% जो पानी है वो ऐसा पानी है जो पत्तियां हवा से ले रही हैं।
what are called as trichomes.
हम जो खेतों में पानी डाल रहे हैं उससे ये ज्यादा मात्रा में है जो पेड़ खुद से हवा से ले रहा है।
Under natural farming, plants under chemical agriculture, and we found that natural farming plants have 3 to 5 times, 10 times more trichomes than the chemical plants. So there is something happening in the plant physiology which is enabling the plants grown under natural farming to harness water from the air. So this is something, so therefore the paradigm for water changes, that crops are not just consumers of water, but we are showing that natural farming also, the plants are generating water by themselves, not dependent on rainfall alone. So we are actually
प्राकृतिक
creating
खेती के माध्यम से पानी कैसे बच रहा है उसकी बात हो रही है कि उसमें पानी जो अलग से लग रहा है वो कैसे कम हो रहा है और हवा से पानी का उपयोग कैसे बढ़ रहा है। आप ये प्राकृतिक खेती का खेत देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर कितनी विविधता है
different seeds.
और ये 365 दिन ये खेत ढका रहता है ऐसा।
So that before
यहाँ पर 30 से 60 प्रकार की ग्रीन हरी फसलें कुछ ना कुछ लगा ही लगा रहता है।
then this is something great importance. We built on the science of natural farming, but more important, we
ए
built
ग्रेड मॉडल जो एपीसीएनएफ ने काम किया है उसकी बात हो रही है, जहां पर एक मुख्य फसल होती है, उसके आसपास जुड़ी हुई कुछ 4 से 6 फसलें होती हैं, और कुछ 20 से 25 ऐसी फसलें होती हैं जो जैव विविधता को बढ़ाती हैं।
So in each season, there would be one major crop plus 4 to 6 associated crops. That means about 5 crops, 5, 6 crops. Also some 25 biodiversity crops. And this kind of crop mix is there throughout the year. And
साल
this
भर में ये
means
अलग अलग तरीके के
land equivalent ratio.
पौधे हमेशा
One
उस
acre
फसल
of a
में लगे
farmer
रहते हैं।
is equal to some 3 acres, 4 acres. And since farmer is taking crops throughout the year, so the cropping intensity is now going up to 3. So these farmers, and this is the beginning, we started about 2 years ago. There's still an innovation, but we see a lot of promise in this, where farmers are growing crops throughout the year. So our target is that
अगले
these
3 साल में 1 लाख फार्मर्स एक मॉडल कर रहे होंगे। इस मॉडल को लेकर के सोच ये है कि कम से कम 25,000 रुपए महीना एक किसान अलग अलग तरीके से निकाल रहा हो, जिसमें कुछ मुख्य फसलें हों, बट जो अलग अलग और भी फसलें हैं, पेड़ पौधे हैं, विविधता है, उससे इनकम कैसे बढ़ रही हो, वो एक और इम्पोर्टेंट है।
10% or the first decile in the country. That's our vision for our farmers. And we plan to develop around 100,000 such farmers in the next 3 years. So you see, by understanding the science, taking it to farmers, we're able to ensure farmers' prosperity. This is like one particular A grade model.
ये कपास का ए ग्रेड मॉडल है। तो आप स्टार जो निशान बने हुए हैं वो कपास है, उसके बगल में देखिए आपको नीले जो त्रिकोण दिख रहे हैं वो फली हैं। फली के बीच में आपको दिख रहे हैं बाजरा लगा है, बाजरा के साथ में अपने और लोबिया लगी हुई है। ये ए ग्रेड मॉडल की बात हो रही है कि कैसे 4-5 मुख्य फसलें हैं, सबसे मुख्य कपास है, उसके बाद में अलग अलग फसलें जोड़ के लगाए।
But cotton becomes perennial in this case. But we have other crops, tomato, brinjal.
जब कपास के अलावा, इनके अलावा भी टमाटर, मिर्ची, बैंगन, और भिंडी, ग्रीन ग्राम, ये सारी चीजें जो उसका हिस्सा है।
So this is a grade model in cotton, and you can see this is at the end of 365 days.
पहली फोटो 25 दिन की फसल की है, दूसरी देखिए 45 दिन की है।
We have even within banana for the first 6 months, farmers are able to take diverse crops, and that has increased their income. This farmer was actually able to get 3
ये
lakhs per acre
जो
in banana. And
कमाई उसके बारे में, ये एटीएम मॉडल है।
landless poor and for very small
ये ऐसे किसानों के लिए जिनके पास में लैंड बिल्कुल भी उपलब्ध नहीं है या बहुत ही छोटी लैंड है, मतलब 20 सेट लैंड, यानी बहुत ही, मतलब एकड़ का 20वां हिस्सा। इसमें 15 से 18 प्रकार की अलग अलग तरह की सब्जियां लगाई जाती हैं। एटीएम का मतलब कि किसी भी समय आप पैसा निकाल सकते हो। तो मुख्यतः यहाँ पर सब्जियां लगाई जाती हैं, करीबन 15 से 18 प्रकार की सब्जियां इसमें लगाई जाती हैं। जो हरी सब्जियां हैं वो भी होती है, उसके अलावा जो कंद होते हैं जमीन के नीचे लगने वाले, चाहे गाजर हो, चाहे चुकंदर हो, चाहे वो मूली हो, उसके अलावा फलियां, बैंगन और ये सारी चीजें, और साइड में ड्रम स्टिक्स, ये सारी चीजें भी रहती हैं।
We also set up a Indo-German Global Academy to develop farmer science, to do research, of course.
एपीसीएनएफ ने अभी कुछ समय पहले एक ऐसी संस्था चालू किया है जहां पर किसानों को शोधकर्ता साइंटिस्ट बनाने के लिए काम चालू है। 4 साल का डिग्री प्रोग्राम किसानों के लिए है, जहां पर वो फार्मर साइंटिस्ट बन सकते हैं। और वो लिखा पढ़ी का सिर्फ डिग्री नहीं है, आप अपने खेत में, जो भी किसान इससे जुड़ेगा वो अपने खेत में उस चीज को जो सीखा है वो बना रहे होंगे, आसपास के लोगों को सिखा रहे हैं, और आसपास के गांव को परिवर्तित करने के लिए इस सोच से ये कोर्स चालू किया गया है। प्राकृतिक खेती के जो विज्ञान है उसमें कुछ मूव सर, पहली बात कर रहे हैं कि मिट्टी एक जीवित चीज है, उसमें जान है, उसके अंदर बहुत सारी ऐसी प्रक्रिया चल रही हैं, और पौधे मिट्टी को पोषक दे रहे हैं। अभी तक हमारी समझ रही है कि मिट्टी से पोषक पौधे को आ रही है, इसका उल्टा यहाँ पर बात हो रही है कि जो अलग अलग प्रकार की जैव विविधता है उससे मिट्टी को कैसे पोषक मिल रहे हैं, इस बात पे बात है। बाहर के किसी भी प्रकार के इनपुट की जरूरत बिल्कुल भी नहीं है। जैव विविधता बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है, जहां पर फसलें एक दूसरे से लड़ाई ना कर रही हो बट एक दूसरे को मदद कर रही हो अच्छा और बेहतर बनने। और जो खरपतवार है उसका नजरिया, उसको गलत नजर से ना देख करके, बट उनका क्या रोल हो सकता है या उनका क्या इस्तेमाल हो सकता है, वो फोकस है। बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज सर ने की है कि जो अभी का विज्ञान है वो बोल रहा है हर प्रकार का पौधा जो है वो आपका नाइट्रोजन मिट्टी में डालता है। अभी तक हम समझते थे सिर्फ जो दलहन है, पल्सेस हैं, वो सब डालती हैं, लेकिन यहाँ पर साइंस के हिसाब से बोला जाता है कि हर तरह के पौधे कहीं ना कहीं डालते हैं।
Very complex, so we need to have an open mind, understand what research is saying. And then I just showed you the water paradigm. Plants are not mere consumers of water, but they produce water. Then pest management. We
यहाँ पर
started
भी
with
बात बहुत अलग हुई कि पानी, जो पौधा है वो सिर्फ पानी को इस्तेमाल नहीं करता है, वो पानी बना भी रहा है जो और भी चीजों के लिए इस्तेमाल हो सके। ये भी एक अलग नजरिया है। पेस्ट मैनेजमेंट, कीट नियंत्रण की बात हो रही है कि अगर मिट्टी अच्छी है, जैव विविधता खूब सारी है, तो अपने आप बहुत सारे कीट नियंत्रण हो जाते हैं।
take it up. And then there is what is called as a plant health pyramid. I advise you to look into this. So where good soil and all the good natural farming principles ensure that the plants themselves are strong enough to repel any pest.
यहाँ पर ये बात हो रही है प्लांट हेल्थ पिरामिड में, सर बोल रहे हैं कि ये बात बोलता है कि अगर आपकी मिट्टी अच्छी है, आपका पौधा अच्छा है, तो उसके अंदर अपने आप वो क्षमता होती है, साइंस बोलते हैं, कि वो पेस्ट से लड़ाई कर सके।
Will food and nutrition security be compromised if we all shift to natural farming?
ये सवाल जो हमसे अक्सर पूछा जाता है कि क्या अगर हम सब लोग जैविक प्राकृतिक खेती की तरफ मूव करते हैं तो क्या हमारा खाना है, जो भंडारण है, वो क्या उस पे खतरा हो जाएगा। उसका उत्तर सर ना बोल रहे हैं। वे बोल रहे हैं कि इट इज ओनली पॉसिबल, मतलब वो संभव ही है अगर प्राकृतिक खेती की तरफ से खेती के सिस्टम को समझना है, तो प्राकृतिक खेती ही एकमात्र तरीका है उत्पादन बढ़ाने का, न्यूट्रिशन अपने पोषक तत्व को मेंटेन करने का, मिट्टी को अच्छा रखने का, प्रकृति का स्वास्थ्य अच्छा रखने का, जीव जंतुओं का साथ रखने का। तो यही एक तरीका है। और इसके विपरीत केमिकल एग्रीकल्चर जिस तरीके से चालू हुआ और जो स्थिति में अभी है, ये बड़ी समस्या बनने वाली है हमारी खाद्य सुरक्षा को लेकर के।
So I'll conclude here and by thanking all of you for your participation. So I've concluded now. Over to you, Rohit.
Thank you, Vijay Kumar Garu, for the illuminating presentation. Hello? No, not.
I think he has to switch off the interpretation.
I think he is trying to rejoin, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, please.
Yes, fine.
Thank you, Vijay Kumar Garu, for the illuminating presentation. It was very fascinating and an eye-opener for personally me, and I'm sure for many others. Before opening it to questions, and I request all the participants to keep sharing their questions, especially focusing on the science of natural farming on chat or on YouTube. We'll invite responses from a few panelists. I would first request Dr. Chandrasekhar Biradar, who's a scientist and nature-centric lead for CIFOR ICRAF on its Asia and India continental program. He has worked on agro-system research and landscapes in multiple continents, focusing on inclusive system approach, agroforestry, agroecology, natural farming. And his focus is on agroecology, natural farming currently for ecologically sustainable and viable green transition. Dr. Biradar, over to you, please.
Thank you so much. Yeah, can you hear me that one? I think it's clear, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So Vijay Guru, first of all, thank you so much going through that good set of science behind the natural farming. So hats off to you. And you basically brought up a lot of this, the not just the flying in the air, but bringing all the references to the what people that did. That's very fascinating, no doubt indeed. So I'm coming from the forestry background and practicing agroecology. I always am fascinating about how the things work in the nature, right? Especially in the forestry. So that everything's there, so many layers, what you may expend multi-layer farming, total factor productivity. So that's what I'm observing. Always I'm looking into the forest, walking around, so that no one is doing anything in the forest system. And so many the competitions happening for the light, but still everything's growing so well. So they adjusted so well to the system. There is no flowing, there is no watering, everything, but they're so well adjusted. I think what is said is clearly that mimicking the nature. I think that's really the fascinating indeed. So, but what happened is our land is degraded so drastically in the last several years, and we lost that buffer. The molecules are what we call a biological activity in the soil, and then the plant around that supporting that. I think that's really made the huge impact. Why you need the effective microorganisms in terms of all the different the formulations and you mentioned. I think that's make a huge difference. So coming back to that one, we're looking at the put into the few principle of that one, biodiversity we lost massively. Like look at that when I was a child, when go to local market, every farmer bring their own variety of the brinjals or the bendi or something that. Now only all the farmers bring the same varieties of the vegetable. That means we lost so much of the seeds diversity in that. And also the very starting, seed as intelligence. That's where I really fascinate when I'm studying in my backyard farm in US. Putting the seed that one took some of the seed from the India for some of those. When that seed first year they struggle, but planting the seeds again and again, and second, third year, because I'm going completely organic and the natural farming. So that seed becomes so intelligent given locations. So they started profusely producing the third years onwards, right? So that's clearly mentioned that how the biological activity basically bring back. Okay, so if in the regular system, what that we are becoming an ICU. So it depend upon something is externally providing the inputs to you. But here, when the seed learned that, okay, no one is feeding me, so I have to learn for myself. That's where they start what we call a buffer of the return to natural farming required 3 to 5 years, depending on how good soil you have. That's very, very fascinating, really, indeed. So that you look at the biodiversity, that means the crop diversity, you clearly mentioned that. The diversity of the crops that brings the biological diversity, the soil and everything, that brings to basically sequestering more carbon in the air to the more carbon in the soil, right? So that's where the healthy soils is basically bring the more soil organic carbon. When more diversity, more soil organic carbon, that obviously sequester or percolate more rainwater. Basically, as clearly, the 86 drop the water where it's going there. So that our farming system should be when diversity of the cropping systems, always there is a cover on the soil. That's what Earth is always try to do that. And then we have the carbon in the soil, basically to hold more water in the soil. So any water falls that is absorbed into the soil, that obviously there is no surface runoff. That's where we need a really successful natural farming. When the rain happens, all that 86 extra drop of water they can store into the soil, at least 50% of that water stored in the soil. That's what we call, then basically you're not required any dams or anything reservoir required. So that basically holding the more water. When the more biodiversity, more soil organic carbon, more water, obviously you are not required any inputs to the soil, the additional external inputs. So productivity become the more, basically the do nothing farming comes that one. The people often misunderstood that do nothing means you know to do, but we have to restore up to that level where the basic biological activity restore. That's where comes. That's when the productivity increases, automatically the equity and social inclusion happens. So, but you also start very interesting on the nutrition side. The more nutrition in the crops or the food or the what we consume, it is directly proportional to the amount of the nutrition we have in the soil. That's that they feed into the soil, the biomagnifications were like into the nutrition density. And also there's recent studies that are showing that one, like a Walter from this the Stanford, they're coming out with a lot of the interesting substance that. So more soil nutrition, more healthy is the soil, more diversity is there. Our biological activity, pranic value of the food is increased drastically. That means we need a less food to consume because of that meet a more nutrition density. I think this is one of the important things we forget. Often you think that we need to eat more. Eating the more, that means eating the more calories than the nutrition, right? So that when good natural farming is shifting to the health, wellness industry is growing rapidly, we require the more healthy food. In Kannada, there's proverb is called Kasa Tinu Tusu Tinu. Instead of eating junk, we can eat the less, the good, less quality. I think that's the one things we not address much into the natural farming. If you look into that health, like this recently they estimated that we have nearly about 400 the million the diabetic people, and nearly about the 300 million one kind of the other kind of the chronic and the cancer, those things. So often linked to that one, the food they're eating. So that's going to impact on that. So that as where is the number of the arsenics in the soils, everything. So cutting down that really the make the huge difference. The other things you made, the leaf litter you mentioned very clearly in that. There's one of the studies telling that if the 1 kg of the leaf litter humus that can hold 100 to 120 liters of the water. So that's basically the harvesting from the air as well as from the avoiding from the evaporations, then transpiration. That's interesting, that one. And also the healthy ecosystem and the foundation of the food, nutrition, climate resilience. And we talk a lot about the climate smart agriculture. I think this is what seems to be the most climate smart agriculture. A combination of the diversified crops, trees, and livestock. That brings the basically the complete the closing the loop of the nutrient cycling. I think that's make a huge so that they put in the nutshell, the restoring the functional practices of the farming system that combine a productions, consumption, conservation, restorations with a significant co-benefit to the people. It is not just only the farmers who produce the food, but also the consumers and the processor, how that can interact this the awareness. Because when the farmers, they're producing the good food, often their market, they suffer because the consumer are not aware of that, what the food is really about it. So that when this connections is closes, then the demand for the naturally grown produces comes in, then the farmers can make. But other things very interesting, one things you need to look into that one, we're looking only the what is the economic benefits to the market side. But what the practicing in natural farming, amount of the soil carbon sequestered in the soil and amount of the water percolated. Soil is the best filter. No, nothing can beat the soil filter. That water, any water coming into the soil that will filter, and that's when the soil is healthy, then it's producing the very healthy water. Then the streams start flowing. That return of the spring you can expect only when the practice this kind of the principle of natural farming. So that when the food is good and the water is good, air is clear, basically where the surrounding environment always green. You talk about the living, the mulch, that's living roots. That means you're always something is covered. So obviously there is no dust storm. The best example you learn from that, like the US, there's a dust storm. When they heard that one, the tilling a lot of the soil, the dust storm happened. What they did is basically they're planting a lot of the trees around so that they can reduce the dust storm not return. So I think that is what we are the critical stages of this one. I think what we explained very beautifully into the different, of course, the natural farming and science of natural is never ending. It's so much of the things like a fingerprinting of the soil. Every farm is unique. Why it's unique is because of where the location is different, climate is different. Even farmer, the way he's practicing, staggered planting, what he can grow, and all that makes it different. That's why the context-specific interventions is very essential. So that science is also like that. So that's what you require. I know that
Dr.
the time is limited. I wish I can
Yes.
speak a lot, but I can stop here. Thank you so much for the
Thank
providing
you.
opportunity here.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Brother.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite Soumik Banerjee. Soumik he is an independent researcher and agroecology practitioner. He's also been working on heirloom seed conservation, focusing on conservation research of indigenous varieties and land races of field crops with farmer groups in eastern and central India, focusing on field conservation. He's also been working with tribal communities practicing shifting cultivation in eastern and central India towards guided fallow and forest gardens. Those of us who have been lucky enough to engage with him also know him as an amazing knowledge powerhouse and a phenomenal reader who keeps sharing his insights in the various groups that Soumik is in. Soumik, if I can request you to share your insights in 7 minutes, roughly.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Vijay sir, for a very enlightening presentation. And it's gone into so many details of the scientific validity of what is happening in nature. So I don't think I have much to add because he has covered so much. But I would like to talk about seeds because that is one area where I am already working. And he has also talked about the importance of indigenous seed. A lot of people practicing natural or regenerative farming have considered that it is effective to any kind of seed. But the best is the indigenous. And I think we should really try to gather those seeds and we should try to conserve them and get back those values because otherwise as we know that these are all having those endophytes, it is full of billions of microbes, and when we are putting some 3 kg or 5 kg seeds into the soil, we are also inoculating the soil in the process. Apart from all the other ways we are inoculating through seed treatment or through Jiva Amrit or other processes, this itself is also a kind of inoculation. So, which is not possible in these packaged seeds. We know packaged seeds are coated with various chemicals which are very detrimental to soil and other organisms. So, it is very strongly advocated that we should go for indigenous seeds. And indigenous seeds have showed good performance. There is always a doubt that they are low yielding and they don't perform well and so many other issues, but that's not, we have already seen in Vijay sir's presentation that the yields are comparable or better, and there are many other examples across India, across the world where the indigenous seeds have performed very well, and they have inherent mechanism. If you go into the details, how they are partitioning the nutrients, how the resilience is getting built, it's all because of these associations with the microbes. Actually, microbes are basically ruling everywhere. We are only 10% humans. 90% of us are microbes. 38 trillion microbes in our body. Similarly in plants, similarly in animals. It's there everywhere. And basically their combinations and configurations are creating the super organisms of what we or the plant are. And we just cannot remove them from being by putting these types of chemicals. It's kind of putting the plant like IV. Like what happens when we are sick, we are putting this D10 or D5 on all this glucose into the intravenous drip system. So chemical farming is like that. But in kind of natural farming, we know that so many elements are there and so many things are going into the plant, and plant is also giving so many things to the soil. The soil is actually the gut of the plant, and that is where all the interactions are happening. It is a living body. Another thing, we always feel soil tests. I have been constantly talking about it, that we should stop being so reductionist in everything. We want to find out how much nitrogen is there, and all these things which we actually want to find out are ionic forms. But we know that there are these living bodies, these microbes, all these nutrients are in the organic form. So we are completely missing out that. When we are doing soil tests, we are doing NPK, iron or whatever. So we are only looking at the ionic forms because that is how all the tests are designed. whether it is a sensor test, whether it is a laboratory test or any kind of test. So we should stop looking at specific nutrients. We should stop looking at specific microbes or specific fungi in the, because as Vijay sir also told that only 1% is known. In the petri dishes, when you culture, then only 1% or 2% of the microbes are culturable. So 98% is not known. So what do you understand by profiling the microbes? So what do you understand by profiling the chemicals? So it is like knowing too little and trying to build on those things. So instead of that, I think we should stop looking at chemistry or going deep into these specific target organisms, but instead we should try to look at the overall holistic way the soil is. That is in the terms of its physical well-being or in the terms of its biological richness, which is possible only through our organic or natural ways of doing things. And another aspect I would like to touch, because I have been working with Adivasi communities for quite some time. All these things we are talking of natural farming, many of them, if not all of them, are practiced by the Adivasi communities in some degree or completely. And maybe it has declined because of the interventions which has come from outside. If we go back in time, maybe they did all of that. So we need to also see our own communities, our own places, and maybe we have to climb the mountain or go to some remote areas, but we should see what they are doing, because they are doing multi-cropping, they are doing polyculture, they are doing zero tillage, they are doing cover cropping, they are making those plant guilds. There are unique plant guilds which we were discussing, that some plants are good attracting pollinators, some are repellents, some are fixing some nutrients, some are recycling nutrients, some are acting as shelter wood. I mean, they are preventing the cyclones or strong winds. So this is totally a partnership, and this is not just crops. It's also the wild species, the other plants which may not be directly food, but they have this role. And this is a kind of a plant guild. What happens in a forest? In a forest, we don't have monoculture. There are different plants. If you go to Sal forest, Sal has so many associates with so many other trees. And those trees help the Sal to survive. And that is how the forest works. So whenever all through the lecture of Vijay sir, I was just seeing forest everywhere. It is basically all the principles of forest which are being utilized. And I think if we can't understand, we should simply go to the forest and see how things are working. If you look at the forest, I have personally seen, because I'm staying in a place which is fully forested, and there are hundreds of insects which bore inside the tree, which defoliate the tree, the skeletonize the tree, eat its flower, fruit, everything, yet the tree is surviving because there is a balance. When there are so many other types of insects, there are also other types of insects which eat them, which parasitize them. And in the process, this whole cycle is possible. So we don't need any inputs. We are always asking what input, what to add, what foliar spray, what some manure and all these things, and whether it has enough nutrients, what nutrients it has. So those are not the questions. The questions is whether the cycle, the balance, the multitude of organisms, how close we can go to the forest environment. That is the ultimate ideal, and that has also been told by so many great people in the past, including Albert Howard. He also talked about the marriage of agriculture and forestry. So I think that is the ultimate goal, which Vijay sir was, of course, telling that in later we will try to involve the organisms, the insects, to control or manage, actually, not control. And the weeds also. Weeds actually indicate about the soil. When you see a particular weed, you can understand whether this soil is having some problem, some nutrient or something is wrong, and the weed has come to correct it. It is nature's way of correcting the soil, the nature's way of addressing our fallacies. It is not that it is something unnecessary and it has come and it has to be removed. That's not the case. Nature is trying to regenerate, recover from those weeds. So nature is constantly giving us several messages, several indicators of how it is working. We need to keep our senses open and look at that, observe, learn more from our surroundings and constant observations in nature rather than going for tests and all those kinds of things, which I think are severely limited in this science. So the science is there, but the science is evolving, and every day we have new things. And we now know that the microbes are right inside everything. If you see the papers, they say that the fungi are inside the plants. You can see them in the microscope. And this type of work has been done long back in the 1960s and 50s, but they had been ignored at that time. So the time has come that we need to move away from our typical reductionist and chemistry oriented outlook of looking at few things and trying to extend the chemical agriculture paradigm into natural farming. That is not going to work. That is not going to help. So I think this movement which has
Yes.
happened in Andhra Pradesh is enormous movement and towards proving that these things are happening. And thank you,
Thanks a
Rohit,
lot.
for inviting me. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Soumik. Thank you. So Sabarmati Di, if you can hear me all right, she was mentioning she would have some network issues.
Yeah, I can hear you,
Great.
Rohit.
Great. So great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sabarmati Di. So Sabarmati Ji is the co-founder of Sambhav, which is an organization which has been leading organic natural farming, capacity building, and amongst other things in Odisha. Sabarmati Di, along with her father, late Professor Radha Mohan, have worked on transforming a degraded piece of land into a vast food forest using only agroecological techniques in the Nayagarh district of Odisha. She, along with her team, have contributed to experiment, practice, and promotion of a whole lot of organic natural farming techniques and biodiversity conservation, besides other activities. She has recently been awarded a Padma Shri too, and along with Vijay Kumar Garu, they both are NCNF steering group members as well. Sabarmati, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rohit. Thank you all for involving me in this webinar. I was really nervous because I am not trained as a scientist in a mainstream institution. So I was thinking that what do I say about this? And Vijay Kumar Garu and Soumik, they have made my job much easier, and I really feel that what extra do I have to say? Still then, I'm throughout my journey of developing Sambhav and also helping people understanding organic farming, natural farming principles, I realized few things, that every farm and every farmer is different, and they're also similar with others in the neighboring villages, in the neighboring fields, and practices may vary, but science remains the same. Like the principle remains the same. If we say that we have to take care of our soil and water, the method may vary, but the principle is it remains the same, like taking care of the soil and water. That's one thing. And then I was also struggling with few issues, like how to help farmers to understand all these underlying theories, science behind the practices, because you have to communicate in their language. We can't just communicate in the language which the scientists use, because most of the time, if you see, we are talking about the invisible world, which is expressed in the visible plants. So when we can't see anything, it's very difficult to explain to them that this is working in this way or that way. The soil microbes, they help in this way. So it's very, very difficult to do that. So I was all the time trying to understand the science behind all these activities, and also trying to find out ways to communicate properly with the people. Um, for example, like we have been practicing mulching for a very long time. So I was saying that why only mulching with dry materials or live mulch? Can't we mulch also with the stones? Can't we mulch with the say wooden pieces or say coconut shells like that? You know, then people come out with a lot of questions. If I do that, there won't be any termites. Then you explain them what do termites eat and what they don't eat. You show them things. So like that it goes on. You know, it's not just you see things in isolation. When you explain, okay, when summer rains come, you get the smell of the soil. So what does it mean? So how do you explain it? Because people can't see actinomycetes. So these things need to be explained in people's language, and then people come out with very smart answers. If you are talking about mulching, can't we also go for plastic mulching, which is promoted by the government? And then you try to make them understood like how to explain it. Just wear a raincoat, plastic raincoat, polythene raincoat, and stand in the hot sun for 2 hours, and then you will understand what is it is doing to the soil. If you feel nice, then the soil and plants, the soil life must be also feeling nice. So like that, you know, you have to communicate science in people's language, which is very, very important. And then the issue of comparison is also there. When we talk about comparison of naturally or organically grown crops with say chemically grown crops, then the basis is very different, because they go for monocropping in chemical farming, and here in natural farming or organic farming we go for polycropping, or we use multiple crops throughout the season. So yield and cost are different, and then the issue of market is there, issue of income is there. It's not only the issue of yield comparison, also where you sell your product, how you sell your product, all these things matter a lot. So if I say that, yeah, I am doing natural farming, so I am getting this much of income, it's very, very important to know how much you are getting for your own consumption and how much you are selling and where you are selling. This is very, very important. And then at that point of time, how do you compare? So this is basically the issue of comparison. And yeah, coming back to the issue of farmer scientist, it was very nice that in Andhra Pradesh they are going to they started recognizing farmer scientists. They are going to train them properly, systematically. This is very good effort. But this is again, we have to communicate with people in their language. If I take the example of mulching, okay, so how do you communicate that? You take say 5 pots, and in one pot it's just say soil, bare soil, and with mulch, dry mulch, with coconut shell mulch, with say just compost and soil, and then another one maybe with some logs, pieces of logs, and the other one maybe with stones, and then equal amount of water at equal say um, you know, on a proper date or day. So then you understand, people understand by seeing them, by seeing all these things themselves, that what exactly happened. So unless they realize all these things, they do all these things by themselves, it will be very, very challenging to continue the work for a longer period. So our aim is, if we have to save the planet and save the people, we need to understand the science, and also the practices need to be evolved based on the understanding of the science. So when we talk about the invisible world, it's very important, like how you utilize the services of a local pathologist using his or her microscope to find out how much bacterial load is there in your say bioinoculant. And the other thing is like just don't get stuck with few formulations like say Jivamrut, Bijamrut, things like that. We have to find out what are the unutilized resources in our area. They may not produce exactly the same result, but they may be better, or they may be even little, maybe same or different. But we have to give emphasis on utilization of the available resources of the area. And then when people report all these things, we need to also tell them from the beginning how to keep records of all these things, the changes they are observing. And then the scientists need to find out the science behind their experiences. So that will be quite helpful, taking the science of natural farming to the common masses. It has to be reduced to their level. We can't be very reductionist, as Soumikda mentioned, and just 1 + 1 is equal to 2. It doesn't happen in natural farming or organic farming, or it doesn't happen in the same way in all different agroclimatic zones. So this is what is my submission is. I think I should not take long time because everybody else has spoken a lot. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Sabarmati Di, for summarizing this so well, as you often do so. Now we would move on to the question and answer session, and me and Swati would be filtering amongst the questions that have come so far. We would be focusing more on the scientific, science-related questions. There are a whole lot of other program-related questions as well, which we would take in subsequent webinars as well. So Vijay Kumar Garu, there was a question on paddy. If on paddy, whether that has to be a monoculture-based crop or whether there can be some other crops or trees which can be grown along that.
That's a very good question. So what we are doing in Andhra Pradesh is, you see, paddy has to be a monocrop. There's no other way. So, but paddy is only taking 120, 140, 150, 160 days. We have the remaining 200, 240 days. So during that period, we promote huge crop diversity. I gave the example of pre-monsoon dry sowing. So for about 45 days, 60 days prior to paddy transplantation, farmers are sowing 30 different seeds, 5, 6 millets, 4, 5 pulses, 2, 3 oil seeds, then fodder crops, green leafy vegetables, creepers, etc. So if you take out the 150, up to 150 or 160 days paddy, you still have 200 to 10 days. So you have to compensate like that. Secondly, we are doing one more innovation. We have asked our farmers to widen their bunds, at least on 2 sides. So widen it to 3 feet or 6 feet, and then have vegetable crops on the bunds, so that there is very good, nutrition support, but also there is some crop diversity, takes care of the pest load. And in one of our new innovations, we are asking farmers, those who have 1 acre of paddy, at least convert 20% of that to what we call as the ATM model. Have a, very diverse vegetable crops. So in brief, the answer is paddy per se remains a monocrop, except in rain-fed situation, where we also have paddy plus other crops grown simultaneously. But in other cases, we are saying, apart from the paddy season, utilize the remaining season for growing diverse crops. And in the paddy season, have bunds also, and hopefully set aside some land for non-paddy. Yeah, over to you, Rohit.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay Kumar Garu.
Hello.
Vijay Kumar Garu, yes,
Rohit, yeah, I wanted to add in this that there are
please,
different
Soumya.
types of paddy. So I think we are referring to the transplanted paddy. There
Yeah.
are also upland varieties which can definitely be
Have
carried
intercrops.
out under mixed farming.
Yeah.
And in the bund you can grow green gram, black gram, and all these crops. And some places also they are growing fish and paddy. So different paddy ecosystems are there. We have to specify under what circumstances we are wanting to do the mixed farming situation. Thank
I think
Thanks.
it's a question of mindset, Rohit. If you know that we should have diversity, then you will automatically look at solutions. If
Absolutely.
you think it cannot be done, then you will not look at any solution.
Absolutely. And
So,
one can at the same time grow trees on the border as well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Rohit, we have
Rohit,
Sadhana's hand. So please go
what
ahead.
I see that along in the paddy field, along with the fish down there, now the new model whereby the poultry is being kept in
on top.
boxes above the paddy, and whatever is the droppings from the poultry go to the paddy for the fish to eat and grow. I mean, that kind of combinations and new models, ATMs, can be developed. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Vijay Kumar Garu, the next question was on tillage. Can we have zero tillage in the way we cultivate our crops, given that is a very regular thing to be done while sowing, or would you advocate for minimal tillage? Or how would you take that one?
Ideally zero tillage, but you can move to that gradually. You start with minimal tillage, because you see with natural farming, the soil also will become soft. So year one, it could be minimal tillage, but subsequently, once you have the 365 days green cover, you will find, at least our A-grade farmers, people can go and visit them. They don't need to do any tillage. So for them, there is no tillage cost, there is no weeding cost, there's hardly any irrigation cost, there is no pest management cost. So it is basically sowing the seed, application of biological inoculum now and then, and harvesting the crop. Harvesting means again resowing. So but it won't happen overnight. You have to do it gradually, and it's also very knowledge intensive agriculture. I think that's why I call my farmers as scientists, farmers as trainers, and farmers as gods. So they are out in the nature throughout the day. So they know intuitively many things. And so it is this agriculture, especially natural farming, farming in harmony with nature, is highly knowledge intensive. So we have to bring that element. Why if somebody is a doctor, he puts a doctor. So, and then whereas a farmer, we are saying, okay, he is illiterate, he doesn't know anything. So we look down upon a farmer. But why can't farmer also write, a farmer scientist, farmer trainer as her qualification? Yeah, over to you, Rohit. We have diverted, but I feel that knowledge dimension is important.
Absolutely. Vijay Kumar Garu, there is a question on perennials as well. Is there some minimum amount of perennials you advocate in natural farming?
Very interesting. You see, originally, all crops are perennials. It is because of breeding, we have actually made them more convenient for human needs than what would have been their, what would happen in their natural state. So what we are discovering is under natural farming, what is called as through epigenetics, even seasonal crops are becoming perennial. And we would strongly advocate a movement to more perennialization, because it reduces the effort of the farmers. You don't have to buy seeds, you don't have to sow every time, you don't have to till the soil. So there are many advantages, but as it is, balance is required. What is good for the market, what is good for you, how much time you have. So it is very context specific. So we strongly advocate through natural farming, crops are becoming perennial, but at the same time, the tree crops, to incorporate them right in the beginning. And that's why we are making that into A+. That means having 10 crops throughout the year. That is all obviously the perennials. So perennials in the form of tree crops are a must in the evolution of natural farming, and normal seasonal crops are also becoming perennials.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay Kumar Garu. Vijay Kumar Garu, there was a question regarding for larger farmers. There is a tendency that they would want to have machines, tractors, harvesters in their transition towards agroecology as well. What do you see? How do you see the roles of larger machines, tractors, and so on in natural farming?
In one sense, they are antithetical, but then we have to keep into mind the constraints of a large farmer. So whatever they can, there are many equipment now used by regenerative farmers worldwide, and even our own farmers in Andhra Pradesh, there are farmers using it for, let us say, oil palm plantations, sugar cane, large extents of tree crops. So they are finding a mix of, they're also finding a hybrid method. So because once the soil is soft, you should not put heavy machinery in the soil, because then you are destroying the soil structure. So what you want to achieve, you are destroying that. So there is a sense of, there's a lot of called crimping machines, very low weight. So whatever doesn't damage the soil, I would strongly recommend, whether small farmer, big farmer, soil is soil. It can't take beyond a certain pressure. And yes, we have many farmers, big farmers, who have modified these practices to suit their context. Yes.
Thank you, Vijay Kumar Garu. Vijay Kumar Garu, there was another question on for direct sowing of rice. Can we do that in natural farming? And if so,
Yes.
how can we manage weeds in direct sowing of rice?
So we are actually even going to the extent saying you can make pellets out of paddy seed and sow in the dry condition. And weed is a very, very important factor in paddy. So what we are advising, and this experiment happening, I mean, I can't say the full results, but for the first 60, 70 days, we have intercrops in a paddy field. So that is avoiding the weed. So we are saying instead of weeding, you get yielding. So you get income rather than weeds. So by next year, we'll be in a much better position. So we want the farmers to do the sowing regardless of the rainfall situation. So the only way they can do it is through the seed dibbling. It is possible, and we have some initial positive answers. We are scaling up in the second year.
Thank you, Vijay Kumar Garu. Swati, if you can take
Yes,
some more.
sir, there are some really good questions on ATM and A-grade along with the farmer scientist course, and the fact that there is visible interest for other people. How can one pursue the farmer scientist course? If you can just reflect on these two questions. That first is there irrigation required for the A-grade model and the ATM model? That is one question that has come across. And the second is, if other states want to really, this session was really inspiring, and there are a lot of questions where a few NGOs are wanting to take it up. How can we proceed? Would be great, sir. Your reflection on it.
This is a subject matter of one more webinar, actually. It's not such a simple or... So definitely ATM model requires some water once in 15 days, once in 20 days. But the water requirement is very small. I would like to assure everyone, you may need only 1/3 or 1/4 the water We just saw the other day, a lady was collecting water from the ditch to water her ATM field. So water requirement is very little. Over some time, even that little requirement comes down because the transition phase. A grade models, we have cases where there is no irrigation, and there are cases where there is irrigation. There are in between where there is at a very critical time, farmers are putting in some water. So it is, what is your context? If you are in a completely dry land situation, we have a different A grade model for you, where it will be for fodder purposes, where it is for where we have trees coming up. So where irrigation is not there. So again, context. So zero irrigation to the requisite irrigation, depending on your context, depending on the market, depending on your own consumption requirements, these models can be developed. Where there is irrigation, obviously the incomes are much higher. But once the soil improves, because you see, what is the present situation of your soil? So you should also keep that in mind. Once the soil improves, the water requirement will come down further. But Swati, regarding the A grade models and ATM models, I would strongly recommend, between RYSS and NCNF, we can have one more webinar where they can actually interact with the farmers who are doing these A grade models for different crops. Then have Mr. Lakshman Naik show how pelleting is done.
So
What are the biodiversity crops? What is their role? So it will be very useful to have that. And also, I would also, invite people who want to come and see for themselves. You can write to us, write to NCNF, write to RYSS. We can provide that. Then
Sure.
coming to other states and also the farmer scientist course. So the farmer scientist course is evolving. But the principle is that farmer scientist makes her plot of land into a grade model and a ATM model. So their entire effort is in converting their own land into a model garden. And they're learning the science through their own farm. And we have said that getting the degree is not the important one. We want you to earn 25,000 rupees a month by the time, and that's a graduation condition actually. They won't get a degree if they're not showing that they are able to earn that much. So it's like, it's not earning while learning, but learning while earning. You're earning money and you're also learning how you're earning that much money. So it's a very different paradigm. And I really must thank my colleagues, Murli, Dr. Varaprasad and others for having designed it, but it's also evolving. At the same time, I have an offer to those from other states who are very serious about it. So please write. Don't mind if you're able to send 10 youth, 20 youth who can be trained by our farmers, but they should stay for 1 year. They should do the farming, learn farming, and then they go back and practice. So those who are from other states, NGOs who have joined us, I'm making this offer. If you're really serious and you want to get such 10, 20 such farmers trained. Training is not some classroom training. I mean, that's what I want to mention. So our training is apprenticeship. Our training is, through doing. So teaching, as I mentioned earlier, teaching by doing and learning by doing. So we are making this offer. Any one of you wants to come develop 10, 20, 30 master farmers who can then, because some adaptation will be required. I can't say automatically whatever we are doing in Andhra Pradesh will be applicable in Rajasthan or in Maharashtra. Adaptation has to happen, or in West Bengal or in Odisha. But if you come and learn, go back. We'll also send some people to sort of do troubleshooting. So we can discuss this and we can actually think of how to do this, because this webinar is also to tell what is the urgency in this. It's not enough that it's done in Andhra Pradesh. It is something for every farmer in India. So we are very happy, to be able to join hands with any organization wanting to do it in any part of India.
Thank you, Vijay Kumar Garu. Vijay Kumar Garu, there is a question on nutrition as well.
Yes.
Have we seen any results on the improved soil health, on natural farming, on nutrition as well?
We have just started doing research on that because it's not such a straightforward thing. It takes time. But we have some very interesting results which are called anecdotal. I don't know why they are not taken seriously, because it's very important what farmers believe. So they tell us that the shelf life is better. The tomatoes or the bottle gourds, even for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, nothing happens to them if they are not kept in the refrigerator. Then we have tested groundnut, which is cultivated in natural farming, and it has no aflatoxin, zero aflatoxin. And therefore, we can actually get very good prices. It can be exported. Similarly, maize, which is such an important cattle feed apart from human consumption, cattle, poultry feed. So maize grown under natural farming has no aflatoxin. So these are, and also cacao. We didn't find any heavy metal residues. So we are doing this work with important like rice and pulses, vegetables. We will be able to share the results over time, but it's just begun. Yes, over to you, Rohit.
Thank you, Vijay Kumar Garu. Vijay Kumar Garu, I just wanted to do a check on time as well. We are already approaching 5:25. Do you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we still have close to 200 people. So if you can, we can take another 5-10 minutes to see,
Sure.
Questions are not, important questions are not missed. And also, as I mentioned, that, they can send their email IDs. I think between you and Swati, we should see that we send all questions are answered.
Sure,
Yes,
sure,
please.
Vijay Kumar Garu. We'll just check with a few audience questions who have raised their hand. And Ravi Kumar Dubey ji, if you would like to unmute yourself, please feel free to do so. If there are a few people who would like, just ask their questions on who have raised their hand. I'll just allow you to unmute yourself. And if you can take your questions then. Dr. Sanjeev Verma, I'll just...
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Ravi Kumar ji. Yeah, please go ahead.
सर मैंने अटारी जबलपुर में काम किया हुआ है यंग प्रोफेशनल में नेचुरल फार्मिंग के अंडर में.
हाँ जी.
सर उसमें मैंने अभी 1.5 साल में ये देखा हुआ है कि हमारे पास में नेचुरल फार्मिंग में जो यील्ड आई हुई है वो कन्वेंशनल फार्मिंग से कम है.
हाँ जी.
तो इसका रीजन, क्योंकि ये तो शुरुआती में आपने जैसे स्लाइड में बताया हुआ है कि ये तो इंक्रीज होता ही है, सिमिलर है और इंक्रीज भी होता है, बट हमने देखा हुआ है कि वो डिक्रीज हुआ है.
तो ये सुनिए ना, ये आपके प्रैक्टिसेस के ऊपर निर्भर है. जो हमारे एपीसीएनएफ प्रैक्टिसेस हैं जिसमें प्री मानसून ड्राई सोइंग है, क्रॉप डाइवर्सिटी है, तो आपका प्रैक्टिसेस को कंपेयर करने के बाद ही हम बता सकते हैं कि क्या गैप्स थे कि भाई आपका यील्ड कम क्यों आया है. या तो हम अपने किसान भेजेंगे वहां पर ताकि आपको सही यील्ड बताएंगे. We have no doubt that the yield will not go down, and definitely practices के ऊपर आधारित है. हमने देखा है, I don't want to mention any names. Some people have told us we are doing research for 4 years and the yields are less. So we asked them to share the protocols. तो protocols में देखा है कि some important प्रोटोकॉल्स वर मिसिंग. अगर आप सही प्रोटोकॉल्स फॉलो नहीं करेंगे and then you complain that the yields are less, then there's nothing that we can do.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Ravi Kumar Dubey ji. Dr. Sanjeev Verma.
Just I would like Ravi Kumar Dubey ji to come and see what we are doing, check how yields are going up in the first year, and replicate these practices. Because package of practices अगर सही नहीं है तो yield ठीक नहीं आएगा. Yeah, yes, Sanjeev Verma ji.
Yes, sir. मैं जरूर आऊंगा सर.
हाँ
जी.
जी.
Thank you.
हाँ.
संजीव वर्मा जी, अगर आप अनम्यूट कर सकें.
And I have also allowed Umendra Datta sir also to speak. So
अच्छा,
we
okay.
can have. Yes, yes.
हाँ, संजीव वर्मा जी.
जब तक कि वो अनम्यूट करने की कोशिश करते, उमेंद्र जी, अगर आप जाना चाहें.
There's one Animesh Mandal also, if he's ready. He or she is ready. Animesh ji.
संजीव जी, उमेंद्र जी, अनिमेश जी, आप में से कोई भी बोल सकें.
हाँ जी, आवाज आ रही मेरी?
जी उमेंद्र जी.
यस उमेंद्र जी.
नमस्ते, नमस्ते विजय जी.
नमस्ते.
अद्भुत
अरे
सेशन.
आपका सवाल कैसे हो सकता है? आपको तो सारे जवाब मिल गए ना.
नहीं, वो जवाब मिल गए.
हाँ जी.
इतने भी नहीं है, वो बात आगे की है.
हाँ जी.
मुझे ये बताइए,
हाँ जी.
ये पंजाब हरियाणा वाले जो इंटेंसिव एग्रीकल्चर वाले लोग हैं,
हाँ जी.
यहाँ बहुत ज्यादा आंध्र प्रदेश कर्नाटका की तुलना में पहले से यील्ड्स बहुत ज्यादा हैं.
हाँ जी.
उन किसानों के लिए थोड़ा सा अपने को अलग से एक बार कभी या तो आपके पास हम लोग आए. सेशन तो बहुत अच्छा है, हमने खूब सर्कुलेट किया, हम इसको और भी करेंगे. लेकिन यहाँ की जो पर्टिकुलर समस्या है पंजाब हरियाणा की, उसको एड्रेस करने के लिए कुछ और करने की आवश्यकता होगी विजय जी.
तो नो डेफिनेटली. ये सुनिए, आपको मालूम है मकई को बहुत फर्टिलाइजर डालते हैं. हमारे आंध्र प्रदेश में भी 15 से 18 बैग फर्टिलाइजर डालते हैं पर एकड़ मकई में.
जी जी.
लेकिन नेचुरल फार्मिंग में मकई का यील्ड ज्यादा आया हमें. ठीक है. तो जो अनलेस वी टेस्ट इन पंजाब एंड हरियाणा ऑल द पैकेज ऑफ प्रैक्टिसेस, अभी जो दुबे जी से बात कर रहे थे, अगर पैकेज ऑफ प्रैक्टिसेस अगर पूरे सही तरीके से नहीं किए तो फिर यील्ड नहीं आएगा. तो आई कैन ओनली से ओनली व्हेन वी ट्राई. सो वी शुड ट्राई. एंड आप बताइए कैसे
नहीं,
करना
उसके लिए
चाहेंगे.
थोड़ा पंजाब हरियाणा के लिए
हाँ जी.
एक बार तो स्पेशल ग्रुप थोड़ा बना लिया जाए, कुछ लोग किए जाएं. अभी जो सीजन आ रहा है, चाहे वो पैडी है, चाहे वो मिलेट्स हैं, चाहे कॉटन है, तो उसके लिए कुछ तैयारी, पल्सेस भी होंगी, तो कुछ
ये
तैयारी की
आपका
जा सकती.
कॉटन देखिए, पिंक बोलवर्म आया, कितना प्रॉब्लम्स आए हैं पूरे देश में. हमारे नेचुरल फार्मिंग में कहीं पर भी पिंक बोलवर्म नहीं आया.
हाँ, वो
अगेन क्रॉप ज्योमेट्री जो है, कॉटन का मैं क्रॉप ज्योमेट्री बताया आपको कि कितने फसल हैं उसमें. कॉटन में ही 2 पल्स क्रॉप है, एक मिलेट
वो हम
क्रॉप है.
कर रहे हैं, फॉलो काफी तक फॉलो कर रहे हैं.
ठीक.
पर मुझे लगता है थोड़ा विशेष एक आग्रह करके ना,
हाँ जी.
क्योंकि मैं विजय जी एक ही बात पर फ्लैग करूंगा खत्म करते हुए,
हाँ.
कि पंजाब में जिन लोगों ने हमारे साथ 2003, 4, 5 में शुरू किया था या बाद में भी किया था, उनमें से कुछ लोग नेचुरल फार्मिंग या तो छोड़ रहे हैं या एरिया कम कर रहे हैं. तो ये भी एक चैलेंज है हमारे लिए
ओके.
कि यहाँ की जो यील्ड्स है ना, नॉर्मल कन्वेंशनल, वो बहुत हाई होने के कारण वो कंपैटिबिलिटी का मामला एक आता है. उसके लिए आपको थोड़ा अलग से सोचना पड़ेगा.
सुनिए, प्रिंसिपल्स तो वही रहेंगे, प्रैक्टिसेस को कैसे एडजस्ट करना है वही बात है. तो जरूर, अनलेस वी ट्राई वी विल नॉट बी एबल टू आंसर यू.
जी जी जी. चलिए, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और बधाई. बहुत ही बढ़िया आपने बात रखी है, आपने बहुत अच्छा लगा.
थैंक यू.
थैंक यू महेंद्र जी. अनिमेश मंडल जी और डॉक्टर संजीव वर्मा. यस डॉक्टर संजीव, आपकी आवाज आ रही है. वी कैन हियर यू. डॉक्टर संजीव.
सर एक इम्पोर्टेंट बिफोर अंटिल डॉक्टर संजीव वर्मा जी आंसर करें, बात करें, एक यूट्यूब पे बहुत ही ज्यादा कमेंट्स भी आए हैं, क्वेश्चंस भी आए हैं. वन गुड क्वेश्चन वी रियलाइज वाज कि भाई इंटरक्रॉपिंग जो बहुत प्रायोरिटी लग रहा है, सो दे द क्वेश्चन इज दैट does that also adds a pressure on the farmer, the intercropping, because the seed availability and the harvesting time periods? So if you can reflect upon that would be great, sir.
No, intercrop is absolutely essential. So it won't add any pressure on the farmer, because every time the farmer goes to the field, they are getting some incomes. Some crops will come in 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, 80 days. So it depends on the farmer. If the total family is dependent on farming, most of the income is coming from farming in their own lands, so they will definitely get full employment. Why should they go anywhere for work? But if there is a large farmer for whom, this is not, this is only one of the various activities, it may seem a burden. So it's a context which is important, not only the soil, the farmer's context. So as far as I know, farmers in Andhra Pradesh, the A-grade farmers, intercrops is something which they have embraced very well, because it makes sense. They get money regularly throughout, the main crop is coming after 150 days. They can get money from 70 days in some pulse crop. They get in 100 or 100 days in a millet crop. So it is of a great advantage to the farmer, but they have to, apply their mind. It's only a mindset issue. I don't see any problem there. And anyway, it's good for the soil, good for pest management. There are so many other advantages. The litter is, helping the soil be kept under green cover. So there are so many advantages. So I don't see what is the pressure. We don't even ask them to buy some expensive seeds, can be local seeds. So seed cost can be low. And then you applied bioinoculum, so it's applicable for all the seeds in one go. So personally, I don't think it's actually a great opportunity for the farmer.
Thank you, sir. I think it's good that we covered the YouTube questions also. Now I leave it to you, and we are at 5:35 now, sir. So leave to you.
Just leave it to Dr. Sanjeev Verma and Animesh Mondal, and then we conclude.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Sanjeev, आप अनम्यूट हो गए.
हाँ, बताइए
जी.
सर हम लोग यहाँ एमपी में कृषि विज्ञान केंद्र खरगोन है, हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी है राजमाता विजयराजे सिंधिया कृषि विश्वविद्यालय ग्वालियर.
हाँ जी.
पिछले 3 सालों से कंटिन्यूअस हम हमारे क्रॉप प्रॉफिट एरिया में नेचुरल फार्मिंग, ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग और कन्वेंशनल फार्मिंग, डिफरेंट क्रॉप्स पे ट्रायल कर रहे हैं. और इसके साथ साथ जो हमारे पास अभी तक के रिजल्ट आए हैं, उनके हिसाब से जो फाइंडिंग्स आई है, उसमें ये देखने को आ रहा है कि जो पल्सेस क्रॉप है, उनमें जो बेनिफिट कॉस्ट रेशियो है वो पॉजिटिव मिल रहा है.
हेलो, हाँ बताइए संजीव जी.
जी.
तो सर ये कहना क्या मतलब उचित रहेगा कि जो नेचुरल फार्मिंग का रिस्पॉन्स है वो पल्सेस क्रॉप में ज्यादा अच्छा मिलता है?
वो जमीन को मालूम नहीं है वो पल्स क्रॉप है, सीरियल क्रॉप है. अगर क्रॉप को फायदा है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. हर क्रॉप को फायदा है. जब सॉइल बायोलॉजी इंप्रूव करेंगे, you have polycropping, you have 365 days green cover, every crop benefits. I don't see which crop will not benefit. हर क्रॉप को फायदा है. बस आपके पैकेज ऑफ प्रैक्टिसेस क्या हैं और वो इनपुट प्रिपरेशन कैसे किया आप लोगों ने, तो ये सब काफी वेरिएबल एलिमेंट्स हैं इसमें.
यस सर.
ओके. या अनिमेश जी, थैंक यू. संजीव जी.
ओके.
अनिमेश जी, राणा जी, अगर आप लोग अनम्यूट कर सकते हैं.
Hello everyone.
Yes, madam.
Yeah, Ranaji.
Thank you for the presentation. It was very good. Thank you so much for this valuable information. My question is about the liquid biostimulant spray, the percentage that we need to apply, the application percentage.
Right. Where are you from, madam? Which state or which country?
From Egypt.
From
with
Egypt.
Sefa.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. Rana is
So,
part of a Egypt SECM trial, sir.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we'll conduct a special class for you, Rana.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, because if it is in India, I can say, but if it is in Egypt, then we'll have to do some variations, right? So you'll have to do in your first year. We'll do with different concentrations and see which one works well.
Yes.
Thank you,
So,
Rana.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Animesh ji, if you're there.
Animesh, if you can try to unmute.
No.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Then we can conclude now. I think Sadhana Saab can have the last word.
Yeah, I wanted to say a point, sir, that if we are looking at the science of natural farming, that is the topic for the day. What's the science happening? Why we say natural farming and the reason for that. And beautifully you brought up the whole scenario, complete scenario, including the microbes, which we believe is basic to telling us that, yes, this is the science happening down there, which we are really not fully knowledgeable about. Okay, we are trying to understand bit more. But one last aspect, which I personally wanted to say was, I think science is that of circularity, which we increase in for natural farming. And I must say that circularity increases more by virtue of livestock being a part of natural farming.
Yes, it is.
When the livestock are there, there are circles. You can see the produce from livestock going into agriculture crops, and the produce from agriculture crops going to livestock, and all the livestock, including, as I said earlier, the poultry, which are feeding the fish in the rice fields and giving us more and more. So if we do not have cows, that is one problem which we face in many parts of the country. Please start with any livestock that you have, and its droppings, dung, urine will help in the process. If it is feasible, go towards ovines, which are sheep and goats. Their products are also helpful, much well, and still better if you can go to bovines, cattle and buffalo. And in them, if it happens to be cattle, you have a better situation. But the best situation has been noted with the local breed of cattle. If that happens, then that microbe balance and harmony has been noted to be the best, although the studies cannot be complete because there are thousands of microbes working, as we know only about 2-3% of the microbes. But much is coming forward telling us that this particular microbe which came because of this particular local cow gave us better results. These are helping us understand a better way. So the last word is from my side. Circularity, which is being supported by this combination, helps natural farming. Thank you so much. That's the science. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think very, very relevant. And we also advise farmers, if somebody doesn't have cows, they can use buffaloes. They can also use sheep, goat droppings. Anything is better than not doing anything. I mean, something is better than not doing anything. So thank you very much. I also just want to mention that, the cattle, the ruminants and the grasses evolved around 110 million years ago at the same time. So there is a relationship between the hoofed animals, the ungulates, and grasses. So there is some, very important science. So maybe Rohit, we can conclude now. I also want to make a suggestion that if those who have asked questions would feel guilty if we don't answer them. So if they can give their email IDs and you and Swati can compile them and we can send the replies to them directly. That is one. And also, I'm making an offer that we can have a exclusive session for A-grade models and ATM models. So I think end of this, you people can have a discussion amongst yourselves, given the interest. I think Pramel, you can also take a look at this. And then I see a lot of interest in understanding the package of practices. So I want to inform everyone that we are in the process of making videos in English, which you can translate at your end, on about 6 to 8 things. One is about methods of preparation of the Bijamrita, the Ghana Jivamrita, Drava, the pelletization. A lot of questions are around pelletization. What is the PMDS seed mix in 30 seeds? What is the weight? What are the different crops? So we are in the process of making instructional videos, but also please use it only as a template. Don't use it as a prescription, because everything has to be context specific. So we are in that process, and once it is ready, we'll upload them on our website, and all of you can access it. And so maybe we can have with directly some farmers who can show the benefits of A-grade farming and A-grade models and the ATM. We can have one follow-up session on that. So over to you.
Absolutely, Vijay Kumar Garu. We'll certainly take this up in subsequent sessions. In case of any other further queries, please do reach out to swati.r1@gmail.com or secretariat@nfcoalition.in. I would especially like to thank Soumik, Dr. Biradar, Sabarmati Di for making time to join the webinar. And thank you from all of us, Vijay Kumar Garu, for the brilliant session. On behalf of NCNF and RYSS, I would like to thank everybody for joining the webinar. We hope this was useful, and we would come back with more such webinars. Thank you, everyone.
In
Thank
fact, it was
you.
a fantastic session. Yeah, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you, Chandra.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, Swati.
Thank you, sir. Shravan, you can close the session now. Thank you.